Hi everybody, this is Tim Urdan, author of Statistics in Plain English, and in this video I'm going to demonstrate how to run a Kruskal-Wallis test in SPSS. So a Kruskal-Wallis will let you compare multiple independent groups on a dependent variable. It's analogous to a one-way ANOVA, and it is appropriate to use when you've got multiple groups that you want to compare, independent groups on a single dependent variable, and the dependent variable might be skewed or in some way not form a normal distribution. So we will look at self-efficacy. This is confidence in students' abilities to succeed in their schoolwork, to understand it, to do well, that kind of stuff. And let's see, well, how we want to compare, who we want to compare. So first we'll go to Analyze and over to Non-Parametric Tests. And we'll select independent samples because we're going to compare groups that are independent of each other. Now, our objective is to compare the distributions across the groups. And you can see down here that SPSS, if you wanted to, will select which test to use. So if you are comparing two independent groups, it can automatically run a Mann-Whitney U-test. If you're comparing more than two groups, it can automatically run a Kruskal-Wallis, one-way ANOVA. So let's see what our options are. The fields, we want to use self-efficacy as our dependent variable, and we want a categorical variable. So with more than two categories. So let's look at this. This is wave 1 plus wave 3 generational status. So these data were collected from high school students over a few different waves of data collection. And one of the questions we asked was whether the students themselves were born in the United States or not, and whether their mother or father was born in the United States or not. So what this gives us is three different generational groups. Students who were not born in the US and then moved here are first generation students, first generation Americans. Students who were born in the US to a mother or father who were born outside of the US and then moved here would be second generation. And then students who were born in the US to parents who were also born in the US would be third generation or higher. Families can be, third, fourth, fifth generation Americans. So it's first, second, and third generational groups that we are looking at. So three groups. Now the settings gives us some choices. We can choose which test we want to run, or we can let SPSS choose it for us. SPSS will just take a look at the number of groups being compared and decide whether to do a 2-sample test or a 3-sample test. So we can let SPSS do it, or we can select it ourselves. Now, we're going to do Kruskal-Wallis ANOVA because we've got three groups. And the multiple comparisons is when it says all pairwise, it will compare each group to each other group. That means we will get first generation compared to second generation, first generation compared to third generation, and second generation compared to third generation. There's other statistics we can get. We can compare medians across the groups if we want to. I don't really, well, let's leave it in there so we can see what it looks like. Okay, so let's run it and see what we get. Okay. So, independent samples median test, independent samples Kruskal-Wallis test. These are slightly different, but both of them are not statistically significant. You can see the sig here is the same as the p-value. Down here it tells you to be considered statistically significant, the significance level needs to be 0.05 or lower. These are both well above 0.05. So there is no statistically significant difference between first, second, and third generation students in their self-efficacy. This gives us the total sample size, so this is combining across the 3 generational groups, and the median on self-efficacy across the 3 generational groups you can see is 4.33 out of 5. That's pretty high. Suggests that there is probably some skew here. And then here is a comparison of the medians across the 3 groups, and you can see that the medians are, this is the grand median here, and if you look at where the medians would be for each group, they're pretty similar, all of them a bit above 4, between say 4 and 5, so they're all pretty similar there. The test statistic for the Kruskal-Wallis is 1.033. That is going to be below our, smaller than our critical value, which we don't actually need to look up because SPSS already tells us whether it's statistically significant. It says it is not. The test statistic is adjusted for ties. Remember, we are ranking students within each group, and sometimes those rankings will be tied, so you have to adjust for that. This shows basically the medians for each group, and you can see a little bit lower for the first generation group than second and third, but not significantly so. And then what you get is a frequency distribution for the dependent variable across all cases combined. And you can see almost all the students scored 4 or 5 on the self-efficacy scale. And you got this negative skew down here with a few students at the lower end of the self-efficacy scale. And then this just shows you how many participants you have in each of the 3 groups. So that's it.